Alaska looks clean on the map. Blue water, white snow, green bands of forest stitched between. But maps are lies with good manners. Out here, winter is a mouth, cabins are teeth, and the dark is the tongue that learns your name. You think isolation is quiet. It isn't. It has a sound, a slow, thin hiss under every other noise. Kerosene breathing, old timber settling, ice shifting in its sleep. If you've spent a night in a cabin past the last plowed road, you know. The weather talks, the walls answer, and something outside repeats both until it gets the rhythm right. Folks who live long enough to be called locals will give you rules. They'll hand them over like matches. Don't follow tracks you didn't make. Don't open a cellar you didn't latch. Don't answer a radio that calls you first. Don't step outside when the window fog pulls inward like it's trying to kiss you. And above all, do not teach the dark what opens you. We have 5 testimonies tonight. Not ghost tours, not folklore polished for tourists. Confessions. A bush pilot pinned by a whiteout at mile 23. A trapper who counted barefoot prints to his door. A winter caretaker whose VHF answered with his own voice from frozen water. A field hut where noon arrived at 2:47 a.m. A river cabin that learned to cry like a baby, and then like you. Different cabins, same hunger. You'll hear ordinary beginnings, fuel checks, bait bells, generator logs, thermometer notes copied clean in the margins. You'll feel the turn when routine becomes echo, when a knock returns in the exact pattern you haven't taught anyone, when frost on the inside glass moves like breath, when the latch trembles once to let you know it understands. If you're watching in a warm room, dim it. Let the house creak without apologizing. If you're wearing headphones, you may hear another breath layered under mine. That's fine. Don't name it. Because some things up here learn fast. They study the way you say hello through your teeth when it's 30 below. They practice the weight you put on a hinge when you're only pretending to step out. They write your voice down in the slow ink of winter and recite it back until you answer. Don't answer. Not for a polite knock. Not for a perfect Mayday in your own mouth. Not for a baby on the tide flats at 1 a.m. If the map says the cabin is the safest point for 50 miles, remember, safety is a ritual, and rituals are doors. Tonight, we open just enough to look through. Tonight, I'm going to tell you 5 true, disturbing Alaskan cabin horror stories, exactly as they were lived and never fully escaped. I fly where the roads give up. Salt, diesel, flour, insulin. Screws that match the hinge folks already own. For that I keep cache cabins, small, simple, stocked. Mile 23 isn't a real mile marker. It's what I call the notch between 2 black spruce humps where the river kinks south. Good place for an emergency set-down. 5 winters ago, I built a cabin there with my friend Arlo. Tight door, honest roof, shovel hung upside down so it won't freeze to the wall. Arlo's gone now. Different run, different storm. But his habits remain. When he was cold, he'd tap a dumb little code on the cowling to hurry me up. 3 knocks, pause, 2, 2, 3. I still hear it in parking lots when someone loads too slow. The day this happened, the forecast spoke sweet. Ceilings lowering, 20 minutes before intensity. We all trust nice voices longer than we should. 5 minutes later, the horizon erased itself. Whiteout isn't a curtain drop. It's an eraser rubbed across every edge. Trees smear. Ground and sky shake hands where you can't see it. Your instruments say one thing. Your bones insist on down. I aimed for memory. The kink, the notch, the rectangle of darker nothing I wanted to be a roof. Skis kissed hardpack. One skip, second skip, slide. Silence stepped close the way it does when an engine goes from music to ticking. The cabin found me as soon as I put heat and breath inside it. It smelt like old wool, cold iron, the ghost of coffee from somebody kind a long time ago. Ritual first. Shovel the threshold drift, brush the stovepipe, stack kindling like you mean it. Touch each tool with 2 fingers so your hands can find them when the dark gets curious. I opened the logbook and wrote, "Down in Whiteout, 1412, stove good, fuel dry, insulin aboard, okay temp. Signed my name. Neat, quick. Practice is a kind of prayer. Every cabin talks different. This one heaves in gusts, ticks a knot when it warms, and keeps its corners breathing. I put water on, waited for my hands to stop arguing with the rest of me. Then the wall answered with Arlo's code, 3223. Not wind, not loose tools. Knuckles through timber, patient, exact. I didn't answer. You don't feed every animal that comes to the door. The window fogged from the inside. A bloom, then a pulse. Breath out, breath in. Glass doesn't breathe, unless something on your side is learning lungs. The logbook lifted its corner. Not a draft, a small, shy little clap, like a child testing the idea of applause. Half my last line had grooves too deep, like someone had traced the letters to learn how my hand bites into paper. Under the page, my name was pressed into the sheet beneath, carved harder than I wrote it. I closed the book and listened to my own dumb heartbeat translate itself for the room. At 1620, the wind changed pitch. The cabin leaned like a boat. The code came again, not from the wall, from the roof, 3223. I stood under the boards as if wood could go clear if I asked politely. Don't, I told the ceiling, the storm, myself. The roof tapped once, like a grin. I fed the stove. The flame took like it had been waiting for me to ask right. The radio was off, panel dark, master where I left it. It still spoke. Mayday, said my voice. Not a recording, not a memory. My mouth now, from somewhere my mouth wasn't. Mayday, position 54 by 16, fuel 32, alt --. I looked at the logbook. Fuel 32, my line, an hour old. Arlo, my radio voice added, and the taste of coin slid under my tongue. Then quiet with my breath inside it. I did the worst thing. I tapped the code back. 3, 2, 2, 3. The reply came from 2 places at once, roof and window. The window didn't knock. It breathed in 3s and 2s, fog swelling and shrinking to match the rhythm. Inhale, exhale, exhale, inhale. Practicing. I sat because my legs didn't trust me. Snow hissed in the seams like a polite guest insisting on a better story. The stove clucked and settled. I told myself to check the tie-downs. Bad reason, worse timing. I opened the door and stepped into paper. Whiteout at night is a chalk room with no teacher. 10 feet from the wall, the world forgot edges. I found the wing by believing in rope. Tie down, fine. Ski, fine. Me, not fine. From inside the cabin came a crisp, hollow tick, the sound of ice being chipped off aluminum. Wing ice, wrong side of the wall. I pushed back through and shut the door like a man who'd been underwater. Silence held still a moment longer than it needed to. The glass drew a weak smile, then forgot how smiles work. The panel clicked again. "Mayday," my voice repeated, steadier. "Coordinates clean. Fuel still 32. The pencil rolled toward the logbook without sloke to help it. Stopped at the margin, trembled, marked a dot. Then it wrote my name. Careful. My T crossed too low, the way only I do it. Under that, fuel 29. I hadn't burned any fuel. Unless I was the fuel and something knew how to count. The pencil lifted again and added, "Come tap faster." I closed the book with my whole palm. Something in the wall leaned away from my hand. The stove whispered my name next. Not flame, ash. Perfect. My mother's lilt on the second syllable. I didn't look at the door. I looked at the map under the lantern, because lines sometimes quiet pilots. When I lifted it, a new path had been traced in soft graphite. From the notch to a blank oval no surveyor had named. At the oval, small, careful print. Home. Not mine. Not any I knew. Home for who? A Polaroid was taped to the map that I hadn't taped there. It showed my left ski, tie-down rope frayed exactly the way I keep meaning to trim. In the wing's reflection, my face, mouth slightly open like I'd just remembered a word. Behind me, in the reflection, the cabin door stood open. I don't sleep with my door open. A knock came then, the door, polite. 3223. I didn't ask who's there. That game ends badly in every language. The latch flexed once, metal learning itself. Waited. Flexed again, a hair more confident. I set the shovel across the threshold inside, an old person charm, and laughed once in a way that wasn't a laugh. Night is long up here. Sometimes it ends. Edges came back as color returned to the white. Ravens dropped in and laughed like winners. I shoveled my plane out with numb, apologizing hands. I did not look back at the door. On climb out, the panel behaved until it didn't. The radio keyed without me. "Mayday," my voice said, teacher calm. "Position 54 by 16, fuel 29. I killed the master mid-air, sinful, necessary. Lift forgave me quicker than I forgave myself. At the clinic, the nurse counted vials like they were light. Close, she said, praise and complaint sewn together. I logged the run in the hangar book. Under my page, grooves traced my signature like someone had practiced me at home. I went to my apartment and slept like rocks pretend to. 2 nights later, the hallway smelled like wet wool that belonged to someone else. A white envelope sat on my mat, no stamp. My name in pencil pressed too hard. Inside, paper torn from a small logbook. Down in whiteout, 1412. Stove good, fuel dry. Insulin aboard, okay temp. My words. Below, in a neat, finer hand, tap faster. A Polaroid was taped to the corner. It showed my apartment door, open. A blurred me in the wall mirror, one hand on the latch, like I'd said yes to something I don't remember. I slid a chair under the knob. Old advice survives because it works until it doesn't. Blue hour. Heat clicked. Pipes spoke. 3223. Knocks on the wall behind my headboard. Not asking to come in. Practicing. I learned a new rule that night. It's simple. Don't tap back. Days tried to be normal. Flights, strips, weather. Men who live alone too long, telling jokes like receipts. Dusk. Fueling under a sky the color of a bruise, learning manners. The underside of my wing tapped. 3223. Steel doesn't knock on itself. Arlo used to cough twice before climbing a skid. 2 soft coughs drifted out, a perfect impression of a dead habit. Quit, I said to the memory, the metal, the thing. Morning. A sticky note waited under my truck's wiper. Block letters too neat, pencil dug deep. Home. Same little circle sketched beside it. I didn't go there. Curiosity is a runway with no length reported. That night, the plugless radio on my kitchen shelf woke wrong. Mayday, my voice said, patient now. Position 54 by 16. Home. Silence. Then a dry tap on the window sash, right where my hand knows to push. Wanting is a hand it left on me. I didn't look. 3 days later I had to pass the notch. Sun needled through. Wind forgot me for a minute. I looked down and saw no cabin where the circle should be. Just a smooth oval in the snow that didn't take shadow the way snow should. Like a lid. Like a mouth. I banked shallow and left it alone. It is an art to leave things alone. That evening someone knocked in my stairwell. 3, 2, 2, 3. Neighbors knock like debt, not code. I opened a crack. No one. On my mat sat a clean tie-down rope end, frayed to match mine like a teaching aid. A note under it read, "Bring fuel. Not diesel, not avgas. Me." I put the rope end in a drawer and shut the drawer like shutting a mouth. Since then, I've learned how to starve a knock. When the window breathes in 3s and 2s, I breathe wrong on purpose. When the radio says Mayday in my teacher voice, I unplug what isn't plugged and let it talk to its own echo. When Ash says my name perfectly, my mother's exact music, I answer the stove with wood, not words. The knocks are patient. They lose interest when you don't feed them. They come back when you do. I haven't been back to mile 23. Someone keeps updating the cache log in my hand, though. Fuel numbers stepping down on days I don't fly. The cross on the T stays too low. My mistake, copied lovingly. I don't fix it. There's a thing up here that learns. Your taps, your breath, your latch, your voice cut into lengths and sewn back together with winter's thread. It wants what opens you. It only needs you to help once. So if you ever put down in a whiteout where only you should be, and a knock you loved once returns perfect, and the glass starts to breathe in time with your chest, save yourself. Save the part of you that's dying to answer. Because once you say yes, the door doesn't open. You do. Tap faster. I trap because winter doesn't care. Because town is 4 hours and 1 flood away. Because steel on trail is a rule I can hold. My cabin sits where 2 drainages meet and freeze together. No road in winter, snow machine only. A roof, a bunk, a stubborn stove, and a cellar I open only when I must. My rules? Boots off at the threshold, lantern out before sleep, don't whistle after dark, don't follow what you didn't see arrive. I hang little bells over the door, split shot and brass on gut line. If the door breathes, they tell me. The morning it began, the nails squeaked in the cold. -30 if you trust the thermometer, minus more if you trust your knuckles. I ran the line south to north, snares white with rhyme, fox clever, wolverine rude, ravens honest. 500 yards from the cabin, I saw them. Barefoot prints, human, narrow and long, heel, ball, toe. Perfect. No drag, no splay. They walked my trail from the creek to my door and stopped. No prints away, no circle, no joke. Just a tidy row to the threshold, then nothing. I stood there and let my breath be a problem for the air. Wind can trick you, drift can erase. But the surface lay calm as paper, each toe a clean little moon. I didn't touch the knob. At the window, frost was busy on the inside glass. Not ferns, a grid, lines within lines. In the center, a small square with tiny tick marks, like someone counting rain. I knocked the sill once, old habit. A soft tap came back from under the floor. Cellar. I said the rule out loud. Don't follow what you didn't see arrive. Inside smelled right. Cold wood, iron, the ghost of old coffee. I brought in wood, made noise, set the lantern, ate meat that would be dog food in town and a feast here. At dark, one bell chimed, polite, then quiet. The latch tapped once, gentle, practicing. I didn't answer, I didn't open. The frost lattice had changed. More lines, tighter weave, 3 new ticks in the center. Counting. No footsteps in the yard. No sound to teach. Just the feeling of my house getting measured. Before day, tapping rose from below. Not frantic, measured. Soft to heavy, heavy to soft. Learning the bolts. I slid the table over the hatch, set a chair on top, lantern on the chair. Not a lock, a story about being ready. At light, I broke and looked. Bolts back, ring up. I lifted the hatch a hand's width. Cold climbed my teeth, smell. Tamped dirt, mouse, rust. A sweetness like fruit with no sun. No fresh scuffs on the steps. Then I saw prints, mine from last month, stride and size. And a second set laid over mine like tracing paper, heel to toe, step for step, perfected. I shut the hatch like it had teeth. Day 2, I worked the line to keep my hands faithful. Bait bells chimed on still air. I fixed what didn't need fixing, so I wouldn't fix the wrong thing. Back at the window, the frost had drawn a tiny rectangle in the center square. A bar across it, 2 dots. A latch, in ice. That night the latch didn't try. The cellar tapped again, soft to heavy, heavy to soft. A faint scrape, a 1/4-inch slide. Stop. I drove a bent nail through each bolt, ugly but honest. I woke to cold on my ankles. The hatch was shut, bolts still bent, lantern where I left it. But my socks were not on the line. They hung from the chair over the hatch, tied into a careful knot I didn't know. Not fancy, just deliberate. Hands thinking too hard. I didn't touch them. Day 3, bear prints in the yard. this time a neat circle around the walls like a parade plan. Inside, 9 ticks in the frost center. Wiped, re-added. Practice. Full dark. No bell. No wind song. No latch tap. The cellar counted my cadence. I felt my own pace come up the ladder. Pause at the hatch, the way I always pause. One step back, the way I always steal an extra breath. The nails held. The bolts didn't move. Dawn arrived like a guest who knows how to leave. On the porch, one bare print. Beside it, one boot print in today's tread. My brand, my size. Wrong time. We were wearing each other. I packed what mattered, which is less than you think. At the door, I spoke to the floor because silence is a teacher and I didn't want to graduate. "You can keep the cellar," I said. "I'm keeping the door." I left for my smaller east cabin under a cliff that keeps wind like a dog. Newer lock, worse stove, less history. I looked back when I shouldn't. The old cabin sat like a dog told to stay. Nothing moved. At the new place, I warmed the box, hung bells, made coffee the way guilt does, careful and slow. Bare prints waited at the threshold. Not to it, not away. A neat line parallel to the door, as if someone stood there learning the smell. Inside, Frost had already drawn a lattice, center square, bar, 2 dots. A latch. No cellar here. That felt worse. I wedged the door, added hasps, salted the threshold because my grandmother's rules have more wins than mine. The shotgun leaned where my hand could find it blind. Night brought quiet and one heavy sigh from the roof as a sheet of snow let go. Wrong o'clock, my chest forgot who was in charge. My breath tried to match another, slow to fast, fast to slow. I sat up and breathed ugly on purpose. Counted wrong, made noise. In the window lattice, a new shape. A circle inside the square, ticks all set to 12. My watch said 3:12. Time wanted a lesson. I put the kettle on and let it sing the way metal understands. Morning set a gift on the step. My spoon from the other cabin. Washed, snow-polished, tied to a small woven square of grass with a pebble at the center. I burned the grass in the stove. I dropped the pebble in the creek. It didn't ring where ears live. It rang anyway. Since then, the days pretend to be ordinary. Snares, steal, track, reset. Then the small wrongs. At dawn, a single fresh bare print appears from nowhere. Beside it, a boot print in my tread, today written in its edges by light. At the window, Frost draws homework I didn't assign. Latch, clock, door. Ticks that gather, wipe, gather again. Sometimes the bells flicker without sound. A movement like a deer ear. A decision to hold. I don't open to politeness. I don't look through glass to be taught. I breathe off beat. Once I lowered the hatch that isn't here, in my hands, by mistake. Muscle memory from a place with teeth. I set my palms on the table until the feeling left. Snow told the truth one afternoon. 2 tracks crossed my trail and vanished where wind hadn't touched. Bare-facing boot. Boot turned slightly, like a quiet conversation. I did not add mine. At dusk, the frost center drew another square inside the square. A better bar, 4 dots, an improved latch. I breathed wrong until the drawing smeared itself without my help. That night the door didn't move, the bells didn't chime, but under the window a slow brush circled the house, as if a hand had learned snow and wanted to practice. The latch didn't tap. Instead, the breath on the glass synced to mine, then led, then waited. I counted wrong again, said the rule like a prayer I could afford. Don't follow what you didn't see arrive. The sync broke. The breath faded. The frost added one neat tick and rested. At first light, a final print sat on the step. Half bear, half boot, heel human, toes mine. As if the foot argued with itself and split the difference. I salted the threshold, hung the bells lower, scratched the date into the doorframe with my knife, so the wood, at least, would remember me. I still run the line. I still trust steel more than hope. I keep my boots in the bunk with me, like a child afraid of thieves. Because the thing doesn't need to get in. It only needs to learn. It learned my latch in frost, my clock in ticks, my steps in snow, my breath through glass. I am not alone here. I am not company either. If you find prints to your door and none away, don't smile at your lock. Don't praise your door. Don't brag about clean snow. Something arrived that doesn't use doors like we do. It studies them. It studies us. Leave it hungry. Leave the lesson unfinished. Breathe wrong on purpose. Hang bells for yourself. Keep the cellar shut, even if the cellar lives only in your hands now. And if a perfect boot print in your tread sits beside a barefoot toe pressed clean into white, trust the rule that kept me colder and alive. Don't follow what you didn't see arrive. Caretaker isn't glamorous. It means you stay when everyone smart leaves. Count propane, log generator hours, keep boards tight on windows that like to breathe. The lodge is 3 cabins and a main house facing a bay that freezes flat enough to fool the sky. Summer they fish. Winter I keep keys and lists so time doesn't slide. The VHF lives in the main house kitchen. Summer boats use it. Inland, winter, it should be a dead knob with a light. Second week of January the bay sealed. Ice fog walked the flats. At 21:14 the generator purred steady, and the VHF woke like a throat clearing. Mayday, it said. Soft wrong. Channel 16 is for distress. Boats, not cabins. Water, not ice. Mayday again. Then coordinates. 4 digits, a pause, 4 more. I found them on a paper chart. A dot on the inlet 2 miles out. Black water under thin ice if you're unlucky. I didn't speak. Talking first felt like opening the door with my face. I killed the gen early. The house dropped to battery. The radio light stayed green, like it had decided to be a nightlight. I went to my bunkhouse and locked the door, because locks have feelings too. At 2:06, a new sound arrived. Not on my door, on the main house window. Tick, 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 like a spoon testing glass. The radio keyed on its own. Mayday, vessel, taking water, 2 souls aboard. It was my voice. I put on boots wrong and fixed them at the threshold. Walked to the house slow because I was the only person who could stop me. The latch burned cold. My other voice briefed me from channel 16. Coordinates, wind profile, ice chiming against a hull that didn't exist in my eyes. I asked the book questions. PFDs, heat, flares, persons aboard. Every answer was right. Too right. Like training tape with my bad habits left in for color. I looked out. The bay was still and black as a closed eye. I keyed up anyway. Station receiving Mayday. Say again your position. Relief in my own mouth. Copy. Repeat. Battery low. Behind it, bells under a hull. Soft, patient. I didn't go onto the flats. I am not brave. I am the man with the keys. At 4:22, the base radio croaked a last report. Battery's dead. Switching to handheld. The small chirp I hate now. Then nothing. Morning, I checked the shore. Boots on old ice. Between shore and thin line, I found steps that almost were steps. Too many edges where weight should make one decision. Prints that looked like a boot the way a thought looks like a picture. They went to the thin. They stopped there, not broken through. Stopped like a poem. Night 2. The porch light flickered 2, 2, 3. My house learning channel 16. The gen sagged and recovered like a nap it denied taking. Mayday. Position same. Stand by. I didn't answer. I shut off the porch light. It turned itself back on. I pulled the breaker like a tooth. The light stayed on. The house was running the generator, not the other way around. I let the oil stove breathe low and sat in orange. At 23:18, my voice rose from the bay itself. No radio, fog speaking vowels. Mayday, the ice said, and the window inhaled like a person keeping quiet tears. I opened the chart and laid a yardstick on the route the voice wanted, a thin, straight 2 miles. The yardstick fogged under my finger. I made the worst choice I could survive. I keyed the mic and gave a bearing from our porch. Come to the light. The fog gathered in a ring on the flats. A darker square rose inside it, like a thought with weight. I stepped backward until the door found me. Day 3. I did chores like chores could forgive me. Split kindling, sharpened knives already sharp, soup I didn't taste. At 17:42, the gen hiccuped. The VHF keyed and children joined my mouth. May, day, May, day. Not words, cadence. A kid keeping a fire lit by saying the right syllables in the right order. I wrapped a hot pack around a spare handheld battery, because batteries like to be treated like old dogs. The handheld chimed happy. I hated it for that. I thought about walking out. 2 miles isn't much when stars behave. 2 miles is a coffin when ice fog sits at your ankles. I stayed. At 22:03, my voice said it could see the lodge, said it was aiming for the light, said it could hear a generator I had killed hours ago, said it could hear someone singing. Nobody sings here in January, but there was a pattern. Long tone, short, short, pause, short, like a seal with a whistle and an opinion. At 23:10, the main house handle turned without a hand, half an inch forward, back, practicing. Leave, I said to the wood, the ice, the child, myself. It stopped. Out on the flats, the fog ring lifted, settled, lifted again, like a thing learning breath. Night 4, the aurora walked up and spread green like a wet sheet. Mayday, my voice said. Coordinates again. I can see the lights dancing. I cut the porch breaker. The dancing stayed. The radio refused the off switch. The sky brightened. The volume rose like someone put a hand on it. An engine noise arrived with no engine to wear it. Not two-stroke, not diesel. A recording of power played through a throat. It throbbed twice and came closer. The fog ring reached the yard and sat like a good dog. The darker square bobbed like a breath held too long. Come to the porch light, my voice said from the fog. My porch light was dead. It glowed once anyway. Dimension, then out. Something tapped the glass by the radio. Tap, tap, tap. 3, 2, 2, 3. Not my code. Not anyone's I miss. I kept my hands where a child could see them. I kept my voice flat. "You called," I said. I heard. The radio keyed once more. "Copy," said my voice, and below it a smaller echo said, "Copy," in a careful mouth. "Standing by," both of us said. The fog didn't leave. It forgot me, thinned like a thought backing away from a hot stove. The house settled. The ice sang once like a wire pulled and let go. I slept like a thief sleeps, ready to run from his own door. 2 weeks later, the pilot brought mail and oranges and a grin. I said weather and quiet and fine. He didn't ask better. I kept the gen on schedule. I kept the radio cord unplugged from a wall that doesn't care. The bay remembered me less each night. The ring stayed farther out. The numbers faded back into numbers. In March, I moved to town. My apartment over the hardware store smelled like sun-licking dust. I slept to traffic and arguing, and felt like I'd borrowed someone else's safe dream. First night, the bathroom fan clicked on by itself. The hiss matched channel 16 exactly. Carrier hum, polite breath. My voice, tired and small and happy to be heard. Mayday. Position. Home. One chirp. Quiet. I hung a towel over the vent like a flag surrendering to a country only I could see. When the season changed, I told myself the lesson out loud, because quiet will keep a secret too long and make it a habit. Channel 16 is for distress, not for practice. If you hear your voice calling from water you can walk on, don't answer first. Make the night say please. Let the coordinates repeat without you. When a light you cut at the breaker glows anyway, don't follow it onto the flats. Stand by. Let want grow thin. The bay learns fast. So do houses. But if you refuse to teach, they forget you. And forgetting is the only rescue I ever got. 2 wildlife techs. One hut the size of a pickup bed under a sky that quit daylight in November. Our job? Collars and counts. Wolves mostly, fox sign, moose that refused statistics. We rotated weeks, ate numbers, slept suggestions. The logbook was our clock. The hut had a thin roof, a thicker door, and a stove that forgave everything but arrogance. Thermistors, trail cams, a hand winch, 2 analog clocks, 1 digital. A Polaroid camera for the rare, clear night when stars sit so low it feels impolite to stare. Ritual at shift start. Stove, instruments, time check. 00:03, Nate recorded. Sky fully cloudy. Wind 2 knots northeast. Temperature -22 degrees Celsius. 00:04, I wrote the same because 2 hands keep truer time. Nate knocked his wristwatch like it could confess. Times for towns, he'd say. Times for arteries, I'd answer. A harmless fight we passed back and forth like a salt lick. At 2:47, the room filled with noon. Not a lamp, not a stove trick. A clean white sheet of light pulled tight across everything. Both analog clocks read 12 o'clock. The digital insisted on 2:47. Nate raised the Polaroid, thumbed exposure, and clicked. We shook the square near the stove curve, not too close, and waited. It developed wrong. Bright zenith sun, shadows short as theater truss. A sky I hadn't seen in months. The window outside showed black winter and thick cloud. We logged it. 2:47 a.m. Polaroid displays noon sun. Nate underlined noon once. You don't sleep after that. You try soup and fail. While we ate, the roof answered us. 3 steady thumps overhead. Not steps, not wind. the weight and lift of someone who knows roofs. Outside air was dead calm. Nate stood beneath the sound, like a kid under the museum whale. I touched a finger to my lips. We offended silence together. The thumbs crossed above the bunks and stopped over the stove. Nothing else. 0319. The digital blinked to 12 o'clock without counting. Both analogs already were. I turned the stove down as if modesty could fix physics. Our coffee steamed backward. Not up, down. Threads of vapor slid down the kettle like heat had become heavy. We took it off the flame and watched it keep steaming downward for a beat too long to forgive. We didn't drink that water. We sat shoulder to shoulder, like boys waiting for a father's headlights. Roof still, walls still, clocks wrong together. Agreement was the worst part. I snapped a Polaroid of Nate's face to make something honest. In the square, his smile forgot itself and turned to concentration halfway through. I flipped the picture face down. I didn't want to watch him get edited. At 4:11, the snow vent spoke in a voice that tried to be Nate's and missed a rib. "Log time, 04, it said, from the round mouth that lets the hut breathe when weather disapproves. We both heard it. We both pretended it was air. It tried again. 04-teen. Right syllables, wrong soul. "Stop," I told the vent. "Wood listens better than people do." We made a rule in the margin of the logbook. Write the time you feel, not the time you see. It reads normal until you try it. At 11:26, digital, both analogs lurched to 3:11, inched, and froze. Dogs creeping toward a couch they're not allowed on. "Check cams at noon," Nate said. We agreed to choose the noon outside, if it ever came. Second night, a pattern. We named it to keep our teeth. The fake noon was the show. The vent voice was the rehearsal. The roof weight was the handler. At 2:47 again, the show. Clocks to 12 o'clock like applause. We photographed the door. In the picture, it was open. In the room, it wasn't. We photographed the yard. The photo showed a single file of bootsteps to the tree line. When we opened the real door, the snow was clean as paper. 2 ovals and a smaller third fogged the glass at face height. Forehead, mouth, mouth. A person with 2 mouths. I pressed a knuckle to the pane. The fog retreated from my knuckle before I touched it. We didn't talk about that one. Day 3. The clocks surrendered their last dignity. At the show's start, all 3 snapped to 12 o'clock at once. 12:01, tick. 12:02, tick. Nate held my wrist. When the clocks ticked, my pulse stepped to meet them. When the ticks paused, it waited. Fear smiled with us, relieved to have company. At 12:05, showtime, footfalls returned to the roof. Not thumps now, toe-heel practice. They crossed from stovepipe to door and stopped. The vent voice got one word exactly right. Open. We didn't. We tried breaking the show. If it wanted noon, we would drown it in noon. Stove wide open, birch like sinners. Mantle lamp lit, door propped a finger. Emergency blanket hung to throw light back at the window. The hut went bright, like a bad idea. Window fog cleared. The wall sweated in fine lines like a map we couldn't read. Both analogs ticked hard, trembled, went blank. The digital blinked once, then gave up and returned to 12 o'clock. The show ended early. We put the room back the way a child puts a book back when they've read the last page first. At real noon, the dim smear you only know because the spruce learned depth, we snowshoed to Cam 3 along the alder line. No wind. Snow squeaked like glass. A second set of boot-length prints paralleled ours, 2 straight, exactly centered, step distance measured like a grant. They followed 50 yards and simply weren't anymore. No cross, no sink, no scuff. Thought lifts that clean. Cam 3 had eaten its SD card, not corrupted, gnawed, edges feathered like a careful smallmouth. The mount was warm. I slipped the card into a bag. The bag felt like holding a thought that wanted skin. Back at the hut, someone had written our log in a clerk's neat hand. 12 o'clock, sun at zenith. Shadow 0.92 meters, bunk post. 12:06, subject to pulse synchronized. 12:10, door behavior improving. Subject 2 was my size. We called the supervisor on the sat phone and gave careful, boring facts. Instrument drift, possible magnetic, power quality. He praised diligence, offered early rotation if we didn't break anything, told us to keep the log clean because funding confuses truth with tidy. We didn't mention the show. We didn't mention 2 mouths on the window. That night, rehearsal learned my father's exact way of saying my full name, the prouder trouble voice, and breathed it through the vent. That word does not belong to any room. We put both palms flat on the table and counted breaths like men about to lift a car. 12:02, show. The handle turned, half an inch forward, back, practicing. We didn't stand, we didn't speak. We let it practice and fail and practice again. When the show dimmed, coffee steamed upward like a stupid mercy. The analogs died in the small shame machines no. The digital decided to be 313 because it missed us. Nate said, "Tomorrow we open at the show." I said, "We won't." Silence did the loudest work of the week. I woke to rain, a sound that shouldn't live here in February. Soft patter, a sheet sliding, then a brittle disapproval. A pop like temperature scolding us. I stood under the roof and counted lies. 3, 2, 2, 3. The show was teaching rhythm to weather. We compromised, like cowards and heroes do. We would open the door at the show, breathe once, and close it, if nothing begged. We said the rule aloud, because wood keeps vows better than people. 0247 digital. Noon arrived like a train on schedule. Clocks to 12 o'clock. Smooth white light. The vent hummed a single held note, matching a lamp that wasn't on. We walked to the door like men going to shake hands with a boss who doesn't remember hiring them. Top latch was mine, lower was Nate's. We counted 3 heartbeats. Mine cooperated like a boy at a recital. We opened to noon. Outside, bright, postcard, fake. Shadows scissor crisp. Our yard existed twice, once where it should, once offset by a breath. 2 men stood in the offset yard. 2 us. Not mirror, not opposite. Us, wearing just off like a new shirt. I raised my hand without deciding. The other me raised his, wrong-handed, left where I am right. He smiled with only the lower half of the face. The top mouth stayed fogged on the window behind him. "Shut it," Nate said, calm like a good teacher. We closed the door, barred it, sat with our backs to it because Wood had asked for company. The logbook turned its own page and wrote in that clerk's hand, 12:01, door opened, subjects declined. 12:02, subject 2 recognized self. 12:03, latch comprehension improving. I set the stove poker on the book like a heat you can trust. The show faded slow, more bored than beaten. We called the supervisor and asked for early rotation with words town people can sign. Instrument drift, anomalous light, possible power issue. He said a helicopter could punch in next day if weather minded itself. We packed careful layers like men who practice leaving for years. We left a note for replacements. Time anomalies observed. Record with care. Do not open at noon. We didn't feel like poets. Sleep tried us once more. I woke because a microwave timer we didn't own sat on the shelf above the sink. Unplugged. Beige plastic. Cracked 7-segment display. Blinking 12 o'clock. Humming the old mains hum you hear in churches. Its cord trailed into nothing. It blinked once, settled to 12 o'clock. Blink, 12 o'clock. The door latch edged forward, back, then behaved like a student who saw the teacher's face. The vent drew a half-breath of my father's voice and decided against the sentence. We waited on the real dim noon, the kind that only teaches depth, and left. The hut got smaller behind us, then a little bigger, then smaller again as the show tried a last effect with perspective. We didn't look back a third time. At the pad, the helicopter arrived honest and rude to a snowfield that loves to pretend it owns the map. We climbed in, headsets on, shoulder to shoulder. 2 men practiced by a room. From the air, the hut roof looked normal except for footprints no wind had made and no man had finished. 4 approaches, 4 returns, 4 stops at the door. The pilot asked, "You leave someone to finish a job?" We both said no at the same time and liked how our voices made sense just then. I didn't return that season. The next crew recorded careful, boring numbers. No one underlined noon. No one's coffee fell. The microwave timer came with me by mistake. It sat unplugged in my apartment over the laundromat, on a stupid little shelf near the mail. Each time I passed, it read 12 o'clock. Sometimes it blinked like it wanted rehearsal. I threw it away twice, found it once in my car and once in a box on my stoop. It's in a drawer now, cord wrapped like a sleeping snake. If your hut breathes and the clocks agree because something else wants them to, don't open to noon at night. Don't let the room practice you into a better version. Don't breathe when the vent asks your name with your father's mouth. Write the time you feel, not the time you see. Let coffee steam whichever way it wants, and drink neither. And if a microwave timer you never owned blinks 12 o'clock from a shelf you don't remember buying, don't plug it in to make it honest. Some instruments are doors, some doors are rehearsals, and some rehearsals end with you learning a part you never meant to play. I wintered in a river cabin because the sound makes a person honest. Even frozen, the Kuskokwim keeps a voice under ice. Slow percussion, a bass that never needs to shout. I split wood, ran a short trapline, read bad paperbacks, and kept a journal, like dues to a future I might not meet. The cabin sat on a bend with a spruce lean in to listen, raised on cribbing logs, cellar like a dry throat, and a ladder I trusted more than my promises. 2 windows, river and tree line, a stove that loved birch, tolerated spruce, punished arrogance with smoke. First rule out there, don't mistake company. Ravens will learn your name if you give them silence. Wolves will pull the loudest part of you out so you quiet down. The river? If you repeat yourself enough, it will learn you. It started with a baby. Not mine, not anyone's within a sane radius. A wet little cry downstream, soft as a gull, wrong in the middle. I cleared frost from the river window with my wrist so my breath wouldn't teach the glass the wrong song. Nothing on the bend, plates of ice like dinner for something that eats cold. A black ribbon where current hadn't signed winter's lease yet. 3 soft taps on the sill, not knuckles, like a fingernail learning wood. I set my palm to the door the way my father taught me, flat, listening with skin. No draft, no pressure. So I said the sentence that keeps a man from teaching what he doesn't mean to. I hear you. Nothing answered. That should have ended it. I logged, neat. 0314, infant cry, riverbend, no prints, ice voice under floor. Night 2, same hour, cry closer, same 3 taps. Night 3, the river took a breath between sobs that matched the way I rest after hauling wood, learning cadence. On day 4, I tied a bright cord to the porch, snowshoed downstream and stopped at the black water. The hole watched me like an eye older than mine. The baby cried beside me, no body, no shape, just hunger. I backed away and wrote nothing. Some notes breed the thing you're measuring. By week's end, the cabin had learned too. When the baby cried, the table gave a polite me. The stove breathed louder. The logbook pages lifted like a shy clap. At 2:59 one night, the cry changed. Not a baby trying to learn my name. A clipped vowel, a little gulp on the second syllable. I spoke the second rule out loud for the wood to hear. You don't get in. The latch settled like a dog across my boots. Next, the cry found my cough. It borrowed the small laugh I use alone. At 3:12, the window fogged in 3 ovals, forehead, mouth, and a second mouth lower down. I raised a finger. The fog pulled back before I touched glass. 2 nights later, a new voice arrived with the baby one. Help, it said, getting the L wrong in a way that made my teeth itch. Then it said my name, bad the first time, better the second, perfect the third, including the swallowed consonant my aunt teased when I was 4. I did not write that part down. Daylight made the river busy with practice. 2 miles up, I found fox tracks doubled over themselves and then gone, not turned, gone. Beside them, human prints, too even for a real leg. Snow held a pitch under the ice that matched the sob exactly, as if timing mattered. That evening I tried a smart man's superstition. I pulled the battery from the weather radio, set the lantern low, moved every noisy thing, boots, pan, stove poker, to the far side. At 3:10 the cry arrived like a train that thinks it's on time. At 3:12 it said my name perfectly. At 3:13 the batteryless radio spoke. Help, it said, already fluent. Then my voice on that static, answering, coming. I set the dead radio upright and told it my 3rd rule. Not tonight. Morning, I saw a line of tiny holes from my steps to the bend. Not prints, holes, like a warmed tent stake had poked a guide every 18 inches. They stopped at black water and traced a neat semicircle, as if something under the ice practiced a cradle. I admired nothing and went inside. Night 9, the baby didn't cry. I did. My voice on the river, 15 feet right of where I stood inside. Hey! Then help, with my L correct. Then my cough. Then the dumb laugh I use when I'm only performing for me. 3 fingernail taps on the sill. The stove breathed in time with the word I don't like to hear said kindly. I poured a thin salt line under the door and along the sill. My grandmother trusted salt without explaining it. It isn't magic. It's stubborn. Not tonight, I told the threshold. Not tonight, the river repeated. Too polite on the T's, practicing rhythm. Around noon, the bend cracked a clean note up current. Then a tidy harmony. Plates flexed and settled. For a blink, I thought a finger moved under the ice. Knuckle, knuckle, bend. Testing the seam like a person checking if a door will take a hand. I let out my breath slow, so it wouldn't be counted. Day 11. I wrote for myself. Do not answer first. Do not step toward crying. Do not teach the latch. I underlined teach. Doors learn both ways. Storm came mean that night. Snow at an angle. Temperature where breath squeaks. At 3:11, the cry cut clean through weather like a thread under a knife. At 3:12, the latch moved. Forward a half inch. Back. Practice. A small give of someone sure they will win someday. I stood, silent, set my palm to iron. Cold pulsed through metal into bone. Don't, I told the part of me that answers when my name is said right. It stopped. The voice changed clothes. Come on, it said in my uncle's tone that pretends the cold's a joke. Come here, in my mother's tired sweetness. Come, in my own 10-year-old eagerness. Finally, right at the seam, a careful please. That word is a door if you let it. I heel-touched the stove and let heat talk to leather, leather to skin. I learned how to stand very still. Outside, the river practiced humility. Okay, it said in my voice, the way I say it when yes is already packed and waiting for me. I made tea to give my hands a rope. Let it steep long enough to forgive the water. At dawn, a dog up the cut barked twice at something it didn't want to learn. I put on my good boots, tucked the mitten in my pocket because I am sentimental at the worst times, and carried a shovel and rope with no plan except do not teach. At the black ribbon I lay down, slid the shovel blade onto the ice like a stethoscope. Underneath, something moved, slow, patient. Not fish, not air breather. It pressed once, gently, like a hand on a church door as people leave. I whispered so the wood could hear, I hear you. Then I went home. I packed the small list a man packs when he decides to be alone somewhere else. Journal, knife, rope, tin of salt, a photograph that won't come out right. I left the cabin clean, stove cold, latch doubled. On the table I set the mitten with a note beneath it. Decrypted. For who? No idea. For what? A room's memory. Let the place believe I gave it something I didn't need. I moved upriver to a smaller box under calmer trees. New door, new lacked. Same rules, spoken slow into wood that needs to be told twice. Some nights the new cabin tries old tricks. 3 ovals at the window, waiting for my knuckle to not touch. A baby takes 1 careful breath on the bend so I can count it from bed. I make tea. Let the kettle talk any direction it wants. Drink nothing until morning. If you hear a baby on the river, and your body invents help, so fear has clothes, don't answer first. Don't step to black water because it was polite. Don't teach the latch your weight. Let the river do without you. Let the cabin learn hunger. Let the mitten stay warm on the table without a hand to explain it, because the river learns fast. It will cry like a baby, then like a mother, then like you. And if it ever gets your please perfect, that word will be the door. Don't open. If tonight felt colder inside your room than it should, it isn't the weather. It's the way a door remembers a hand, long after the hand is gone. We met prints that stop at thresholds, radios that speak without power, noons that arrive at 2:47 a.m., rivers that rehearse the word you'll say last. Different places, same lesson. Do not teach what you don't want returned. Don't tap the code you miss. Don't open because a voice used your name kindly. Don't follow what you didn't see arrive. If the window fogs in 3 ovals, if a latch learns the half-inch you give it, if a light you killed glows anyway, step back. Breathe wrong on purpose. Starve the knock. Now it's your turn. Tell me which moment followed you into the hallway. Which sound still sits in the corner of your room. Drop it in the comments. Share this with the one friend who keeps their boots by the bed. Subscribe so you don't have to open the door to hear the next one. We post here, where the wind keeps secrets and houses take notes. Remember, locks are homework, mirrors are patient, and anything that learns your please isn't asking, it's arriving. Sleep with your boots inside the covers tonight, not for running, for not answering.